So here in population density, we can think about density as a measure of how many individuals are in a specific area. So if I were to add a grid line to this forest, I can estimate population density by taking different samples. So for example, if this region represents 1 hectare forest, or about 2.5 acres, you could count how many trees are in that hectare and then find the population density. So you would take the number of individuals divided by the area. And here, these different samples that I'm taking have actual different population densities. This top left one is 2 pine trees per hectare, where the bottom one is being calculated as 9 pine trees per hectare. So it's pretty important when trying to calculate population density, you take multiple samples and then find the average to have a more accurate representation of population density. One sample could be very misleading, whether it's 2 pine trees or 9 pine trees would tell very different stories about the density of this pine tree population in a forest. Okay, so here would be 4 pine trees per hectare. Okay, so as the density changes, it has an impact on competition for food and resources. Now, you might be thinking about trees, like what competition do trees have? Well, they compete for water and for sunlight and for nutrients from the soil. Think about if you have a massive tree and then a little seedling starts to germinate and grow beneath it. There's not going to be enough sunlight to support photosynthesis, and that tree won't grow. That's competition for resources. And so if we look here at this forest, let's say the seeds fall, and this forest grows, and the trees germinate, etc. Now, realistically, right, this type of growth cannot go on forever. This would be a super high population density. Pretty unrealistic in actuality, and that's because as population density increases, each individual has access to fewer resources. Now, I truthfully think this is a beautiful statement when you think deeply about what that means. Let's go back to the squirrels in an earlier video. So as you increase, squirrels, they need a place to hibernate if they're living in really cold temperatures. They need food, so acorns, for example. They need water. They need shelter. They need a place to escape from predators, etc. So here, as the squirrel population density increases, as you get more and more and more squirrels, well, now there's less food per individual, right? If you had 100 acorns but 10 squirrels, well, then each squirrel gets about 10 acorns. But if you had 100 acorns and 50 squirrels, if you increase that population density, now each squirrel only gets 2 acorns. Or if you have 100 acorns but 150 squirrels, you're going to have some who starve to death. And so as that density or the amount of individuals increase in an area, that's going to lead to way more competition and less resources per individual, which make it much more difficult to survive. And this will tie into other units on natural selection. Competition for resources leads to the individuals with certain traits or phenotypes better suited to that environment. They're the ones who get to survive and reproduce. Okay, so that is my discussion on population density. And then my next video, we'll talk about biotic and abiotic sources, and then different types of growth. All right, good job.